Hello everyone, and welcome back to Make Believe Storytime. It's been a long time since I've been here in my magical den to read you all a story, and I am very excited to be back, and I hope you are too. I'm even more excited because with this story, this year's Christmas story, we're also celebrating 1 whole year of Make Believe Storytime. 1 year since we published our first original illustrated story, The Magic Shrinking Christmas Sprout. So I think it is also fitting to thank you all. On behalf of our small team here at Make Believe Storytime, I want to say thanks for all of your support across all of our platforms, and also for your encouragement, which has kept us going this whole time. We also hope that we are going to be going on many more adventures together. Today's video is part of our original Make Believe Stories series, in which every story is created with lots of love and dedication by our team for you. Sam Elswood has written today's story. Oana Tiu has made some beautiful illustrations for it, and I, of course, as usual, will be reading it out loud for you. Now sit back, relax, and let's begin our magical Christmas adventure. The Humbug. Stop squabbling, or the humbug will come and steal you away. The children all stopped and looked at Mum with wide eyes. What's the humbug? Aurora asked. Lowen picked up Big Monkey from the floor and hugged his squashy body tight against him. The humbug is a gnarly old wizard with grey hair and yellow eyes. He takes care of the naughty list, so come Christmas morning, you want to make sure you are on the nice list. The children gawped at Mum, horrified by what they were hearing. She could see she had a captive audience. The humbug lives in a different world, but every year on the 24th of December, the skin of our world is made thin by magic from Father Christmas travelling in. What? Flynn interrupted. Father Christmas lives at the North Pole. He doesn't travel in. No, said Mum patiently. Father Christmas lives in a world called the North Pole. The humbug lives in a dark, damp world called Pole's Bottom. There are whispers in town that the naughty list is looking empty this year, and so the humbug has taken it upon himself to add children for the smallest of trifles. A scowl here, a mean word there, it all counts. What does he do with you when he steals you away? Aurora asked. I'm not sure, Mum said. Most people believe that he boils up an enormous cooking pot and makes Chillington chowder. Flynn knew that chowder was a type of stew, but he'd never heard of Chillingtons. What's a Chillington? He asked. You are, Mum said, with a twinkle in her eye. Chillingtons are children. The humbug eats children? Aurora spluttered. She couldn't believe her ears. Mum had to be joking. Her twinkly eyes suggested she was, but just the idea of the humbug was enough to keep all 3 children quiet for the rest of the afternoon. Flynn sat still and thought for a long time. He knew of only 2 magics, Father Christmas and now the humbug. Did one cancel the other out? Who was in charge? He took out a piece of paper and a pen and sat down at the playroom table. It was Christmas Eve. The skin of their world was thin today, and the magic would vanish the next day when Father Christmas disappeared back to the North Pole for another year. Flynn, Aurora, and Lowen were trying hard to stay calm and be kind, but Flynn was worried. Their twin baby brothers, Pyron and Heath, were teething, and it was making them very grumpy. They would snatch at toys and burst into tears over nothing. What if the humbug came for them? And that's exactly what happened. Mum watched Flynn from the front door as he ran up the road to post his letter. As he got back to the house, he heard Lowen giggle upstairs and then Aurora shushing him loudly. They are playing hide and seek, Mum said. They want you to find them. Flynn grinned and went off in search of his younger siblings. He crept upstairs and stood silent and still on the landing. A moment later, he heard a noise in Pyron and Heath's room and peered round the door. Heat flashed through him. Standing over the twins' cot was a grey-skinned old wizard. He looked down at them as they wriggled about. Pyron's arms flailed, and he caught Heath on the nose. The humbug gasped. "Hitting is naughty, Pyron," he scolded, and then, "Don't shout, please, Heath. That's naughty too. I'm adding you both to my naughty list." Aurora and Lowen had heard the humbug speaking and had appeared at the door of Aurora's room. They all watched in horror as the humbug picked up Pyron and Heath and, cradling one baby in each arm, walked straight through the bedroom wall. The children ran into the room after him and threw themselves at the wall. In their desperation, they had believed anything possible, and it was this that had allowed them to pass through the skin of the world into Pole's bottom. The humbug placed the now sleeping babies into a playpen and turned around as Flynn, Aurora and Lowen came crashing out of the larder, scattering tins and jars across the kitchen floor. "Here now! How did you get in my kitchen?" "We followed you," Flynn said. "You took our brothers," Aurora snarled. Lowen hugged Big Monkey. The humbug smiled a slow smile. "They are on the naughty list. It's my right to take them." "They are only 8 months old," Aurora said. "They don't know what naughty is." "I decide what's naughty around here," the humbug shouted, and then became calm again. He cleared his throat and smiled at them. "Tell you what, I'm feeling generous today, and these baby Chillingdons, plump as they are, they don't add much flavour to my chowder. They're too fresh. Not enough tasty meanness in them yet. The best ones for flavour are 12-year-olds, done a lot of living by 12 and full of yummy spite. They're a tad tricky to catch, though." He pulled at a wiry grey hair at the side of his mouth and thought of the perfect Chillingdon chowder he would make. A blob of saliva trickled down his chin, and he swept it up again with a wet black tongue. Where was I?" he asked. "You were feeling generous?" Flynn offered, holding tight to Lowen's hand. Aurora stared at her baby brothers sleeping peacefully in the playpen. "Ah, yes, generous." The humbug took down a large clay pot from a high shelf and reached inside. "Why don't we say 3 for the price of 2? Before they could answer, he threw a pungent yellow powder over them and mumbled something they couldn't understand. Flynn squinted through the stinging tears just in time to see Pyron and Heath vanish from the playpen. Then it all went dark. Flynn woke up slowly. His throat hurt and his head felt foggy. As his eyes finally focused, he realized he could see straight down through the floor. He sat up and looked around. He was inside a bulbul, hanging high up on an enormous Christmas tree in the humbug's kitchen. All around him were children trapped in bulbuls hanging on the branches of the same tree. There were hundreds of them. He found Aurora quickly, higher than him and to his left. Lowen was harder to see, but he eventually found him on a low branch. He appeared to still be asleep. Aurora placed her palms flat against the inside of the bulbul. It was cold. She turned her hand over and gently tapped the butterfly ring Mum had given her against it. "Yep, it's definitely glass," she said to nobody. Seeing her testing the glass, Flynn searched his pockets and came across the tractor that Lowen thought had been vanished with magic. He stood up, drew back his arm, and hurled the tractor at the glass. Aurora watched from her bulbul as the toy bounced off the glass and landed harmlessly at Flynn's feet. A terrible cackle exploded in air, and all the captive children threw their hands over their ears. Flynn felt his eyes grow hot with fear and worry. He was so used to being a capable big brother. He could make cars and trucks from building blocks, fold paper into airplanes, write letters, read stories, and vanish tractors. But what could he possibly do here? How could he save them? "You can't break that glass, you tiny fool. Look how small you are. It's as thick as your arm. I, on the other hand, can crack it like an egg in the palm of my hand and drop you straight into my steaming pot of chowder." The humbug turned his back to the tree and began chopping vegetables and throwing powders of various colours into the enormous cooking pot, which bubbled and hissed. Aurora sat down in her bauble and felt very alone, which was not something she often felt, having 4 brothers. If only they were together, they could have worked something out. She watched helplessly as Loan woke up and immediately began to cry. She lay down on the floor of the bauble and waved her arms about furiously, trying to catch his attention. Eventually, he looked up and saw her. In an effort to calm him down, she got to her feet and jumped. Loan loved jumping. He watched his sister jumping and pretending to fall over, and he calmed down. Then he joined in. Flynn watched in horror as the spindly branch Aurora's bauble hung from bent under the weight of each jump. Then he realized that even in their separate baubles, they could still work together. He began to jump. The boy in the bauble a little further up on the same branch was wobbled into action by Flynn's jumping. He saw the branch bow and understood. He got to his feet and began jumping in time with Flynn. The movement caught Aurora's eye, and she brought her jumping in line with Flynn's. One by one, branch by branch, children began jumping in time, throwing all their weight down as one. The tree began to nod with the weight of the jumps. Baubles began edging down their branches, a few pine needles at a time, until suddenly the tree came crashing down onto the back of the unsuspecting humbug, who was busy stirring the pot. With a squawk of surprise, the humbug tumbled forward into the boiling liquid and disappeared beneath the gloopy brown surface. His flailing legs knocked the tree sideways, and it rolled across the kitchen floor, coming to rest a safe distance from the fire. Dizzy but unharmed, the children sat about in their baubles, blinking at one another. They were still trapped. Not a single broken bauble. Despair was beginning to rise in Flynn's chest when a great cloud of soot burst from the chimney. Enormous black boots stepped towards them. Flynn's gaze followed them up a red suit to a snowy white beard and rosy cheeks. "Father Christmas!" he gasped and leapt to his feet. "Ah, there you are, Flynn," said Father Christmas with a smile. "Seems like I got your letter in the nick of time." He clapped his hands twice, and Flynn found himself standing next to Aurora and Loan, back on their landing. Pyron and Heath were asleep in their cot, and Mum was bustling about in the kitchen downstairs. Father Christmas stood in front of them, wringing his hat in his hands. "I'm sorry about the trouble you've been caused today. The naughty list was supposed to have been shut down back in the 80s, but there was a communication failure and the humbug didn't get the message." "But he's been eating children," Aurora cried. No, he hasn't. He only ever kept them overnight, so they missed Christmas. We delivered to everyone on the planet, you see, so you must be absent to receive nothing. But he did like to taunt the children with tales of a fictitious Chillington chowder. Too much time alone has led him to believe his own dreadful lies and turned him into the monster he pretended to be." "So there's no such thing as the naughty list?" Flynn asked. "Not thanks to the 3 of you. You saved Christmas." With that, Father Christmas tapped his nose and vanished with a pop. The end. Well, I, for one, am very glad there is no more naughty list. Do you agree with me? I hope you guys enjoyed our Christmas story this year, and remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Spotify for more activity suggestions, free colouring pages, and of course storytelling videos and audiobooks. You can now also purchase 2 of our original illustrated stories at the links below in the description box. The 2 stories that have been published in paperback are The Magic Shrinking Christmas Sprout, our Christmas story from last year, and Milo's Big Bite, with all of our other stories to follow shortly. And of course, it would be really helpful for us if you gave us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share this video with any friends or family you think may enjoy it. And in order to stay up to date with all of our content, go over to our channel and hit that notification bell too. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Happy holidays.